Okay, we are on Daf Kaf Chet Amud Aleph. If you're following in the art school, that's on 28A2. We really moved last couple times. Baruch Hashem. Okay, let's get started. Be'esrim bo. We're cutting back into the Mishnah, where the Mishnah was discussing all the different people who made donations on their specific days of wood to the Beit HaMikdash during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, where they did not have enough wood, and at the time, the Nevi'im Rishonim, i.e. the Nevi'im Achronim, which is Ezra and Nehemiah at that time, said, you know what, you gave wood on the day when we didn't have, so even when we have wood in the future, you also will be able to have a commemoration of that time, and you'll bring the wood up, and it will be a separate korban. They'll bring it and sacrifice it, so to speak, on the side of the Mizbeach as a special thing for your family. And it lists the dates and as well the people that did it. And we pointed out already that there was a variance, a tremendous variance between how much wood they all donated. And I love the fact that there's one person that donated like 2 days of wood and one that donated months of wood. Yes, and they're both stated in the Mishnah with relatively equal, importance. And it reminds us of the idea that the Gemara and the Chachamim say that in the end of the day, the number is not amount. The is not important. The maaseh is not the ikar, but rather the intention, and the intention obviously was done the right way. Okay, the Gemara says be'esrim bo, on the 20th day, bnei Pahat Moav ben Yehuda. Pahat Moav means the governor or the powerful, leader in Moav. Ben Yehuda, the son of Yehuda. Again, a strange name. So the Braita brings that we're talking about two different possibilities as to who this person, Pahat Moav ben Yehuda, could be. The first opinion brought down is Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's talking about this is Bnei David ben Yehuda. It's talking about this David ben Yehuda. He's the one that is Pahat David. Why is it called Pahat David? Because David HaMelech, he was a ruler and he had a connection with Moab because his grandmother was Ruth HaMoaviyah and she came from Moab. The second opinion in the Braita is Rabbi Yossi Omer, Hen bnei Yoav ben Tzruya. It's not David's family, David ben Yehuda. Rather, it's Yoav ben Tzruya's family. Why is he called Pahat Moab? For the same reason, because Yoav is David HaMelech's cousin. Tzruya was David HaMelech's sister. So therefore, Yoav also was called the ruler or the leader. Nathan's asking also to be dialed in. Was the leader of that came from Moab. So either of those two people are the family of whom this was. Be'esrim be'elul, on the 20th day of Elul, Bnei Adin ben Yehuda. Who's this Adin ben Yehuda? Tan Rabbanan, Bnei Adin ben Yehuda, Hen Bnei David ben Yehuda. These Adin ben Yehuda is really, again, King David. Why is he called Adin ben Yehuda? The commentators explain that Adin means something which is soft, and we'll see exactly why specifically softness is attributed to him. This really David, the family of David, Rabbi Yehuda. These words are Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Rabbi Yossi says again, Hen. This is Bnei Yoav ben Tzruya. This is again the children of Yoav ben Tzruya, and that's who Adin ben Yehuda is. Okay, so why is he called Adin? And what would the association be with Adin? Because David HaMelech is called Adino ha'etzani. Etzani represents wood. Adin represents soft. David HaMelech had the character that when he needed to be, he was capable of being soft. But when he needed to be, he was capable of being strong like wood. So we have two different braitot. Sorry?
But does that mean, Rabbi, then wouldn't we skip over and just say they gave him the 20th Elul through the following one?
So that's a good question. Okay. The question the Gemara is going to ask in a question in a second, and its answer is will answer your question. The Gemara asks, 1 second, hold on. The Mishnah says, Be'echad be'tevet, on the first day of Tevet, Shavu b'nei Parosh sheni'ah. The family of Parosh came a second time. So it illustrates, in the Mishnah, it delineates specifically that the family of Parosh ben Yehuda, they gave twice. So now, if that's the case, Mani Matnitan. So who is our Mishnah? Lo Rabbi Meir, v'lo Rabbi Yehuda, v'lo Rabbi Yossi. It can't be any of these people. Why? Rabbi Meir, if it's according to Rabbi Meir was the one that told us earlier that the family of Pahat Moav is David HaMelech, correct? So it can't be Rabbi Meir. Why? Because in the beginning of the Mishnah, it says the family of David ben Yehuda is on this day. If you're telling me Pahat Moav is David ben Yehuda, that means he also gave twice. So when the Mishnah says, and the family of Parosh, they gave 2 times, it sounds like they were the only one that gave in the list 2 times. So if David HaMelech indeed gave twice, once under the moniker of David ben Yehuda, and once under the moniker Pahat Moav, right, ben Yehuda, so then he really gave twice too, as well. So it should have mentioned in the end of the Mishnah that he gave twice as well. It can't be Rabbi Yehuda. Let's say it's Rabbi Yehuda. It can't be Rabbi Yehuda. Who's Rabbi Yehuda? Rabbi Yehuda held, is the second opinion over there if you go back, right? We had Rabbi Yehuda on the second Braita that says that Adin ben Yehuda is really David ben Yehuda. So it can't be him either, because again, then you would have David ben Yehuda twice, once under the name Adin ben Yehuda, and once under the name David ben Yehuda. So again, it should say at the end of the Mishnah, and David ben Yehuda gave 2 times. The same way it says about this Parosh, okay? And it also can't be the third opinion, which is Rabbi Yossi, because in both of these Braitas, he says that Pahat Moav was Yoav ben Tziriah. And he says also Adin ben Yehuda was also Yoav ben Tziriah. If that's the case, then 2 times Yoav ben Tziriah would have got Yoav to be in the 2-time category. And it shouldn't just say Parosh, it should also say Yoav. So therefore, who is the Mishnah according to? If there's only 3 recorded opinions in the genealogy of these families, then who is it going according to? And the Gemara answers, so Litni Shavu Bene David ben Yehuda Sheniya, it should say twice David ben Yehuda that they came back, or if it's Rabbi Yehuda, Litni Shavu Bene David ben Yehuda Sheniya, same thing. Rabbi Yossi, if it's Rabbi Yossi, Litni, it should say twice, gave the family of Yoav ben Tziriah. So like we explained the question, the Gemara answers, no, Le'olam Rabbi Yossi. The Mishnah is going according to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. And when we just saw the Braita that says Rabbi Yossi says that Yoav ben Tziriah is Pahat Moav, and Yoav ben Tziriah is Bnei Adin, right? Those are 2 different opinions according to Rabbi Yossi. So someone heard, the Tana heard in the name of Rabbi Yossi, that Yoav ben Tziriah's family gave wood to the Mishkan. One rabbi understood that he was referring to Pahat Moav. One rabbi understood he was referring to Bnei Adin, but it's clear that Rabbi Yossi was not saying both. So what that means is that one of these families will be Yoav, in which case Yoav only gave 1 time. Okay, so the Mishnah is going according to the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, and either Rabbi Yossi held that the first one was Yoav, or the second one was Yoav, but definitely not both. The Mishnah continues, on the first of Tevet, there was no Ma'amad. And we already explained why on Tevet, the first of Tevet, there's no Ma'amad. Do you remember? How come on the first of Tevet, there's no Ma'amad? Because all the things that you would need coalesce on that day to not allow us to say a ma'amad in any of the prayers. Okay? In terms of, you have Halel, right? Because it's Rosh Chodesh. You have Musaf as well. And you also have a wood offering. Sorry? Well, you don't need the Halel of Hanukkah because you have the Halel of Rosh Chodesh. Sorry?
That was an easy one. We should have gotten that.
What?
The first of Tevet. It's Rosh Chodesh, so you know that,
It's Rosh Chodesh and the wood offering and. Okay. The Gemara asks, hold up. Amar le Makshisha v'rei Rav Chizda Rav Ashi. Makshisha, the son of Rav Chizda, said to Rav Ashi. We turn on to Kafchet Amud Bet, 28b1 if you're following the art scroll, okay? Ma'ishna Halel de Dachi de Dide. How come, when it comes to Halel, Halel pushes off the Ma'amad of its specific prayer time? What is Halel part of? Halel is part of the Shacharit service. So when Halel gets said, Ma'amad for Shacharit, the reading of those Torah portions from the beginning of Genesis, those Ma'amadot, they get pushed off. We don't do Ma'amad in Shacharit. So Halel gets rid of its own Ma'amad. Umayshna Musaf, how come on a day that you have Musaf, Delo Dachidide, it doesn't push off the Ma'amad of Musaf? So if you have a Tfilat Musaf or a Korban Musaf, right, the Musaf offering should be enough to be able to get rid of the Ma'amad of that time. And the Gemara answers like this, and you have to realize what's going on over here. There's a Havamina and a Maskana. Havamina means what I understood or what I first thought. Maskana means my end opinion, the conclusion that I arrived at. At this point in the Gemara understood the question of Markshisha he was saying is that Halel pushes off Shacharit, but Musaf doesn't push off Musaf. It only pushes off Mincha. Okay? Because we read earlier that Musaf, if you have a day that you have Musaf, you have after the Korban Musaf, so there's no Ma'amad on Mincha. So the Gemara is asking why? If Halel pushes off its own, why doesn't Musaf push off its own? And the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Amalei Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says, no, you have it backwards. Hashta de lav dide dachi. If the Musaf pushes off Mincha, which is not its own Ma'amad, how much more so dide lo kol sheken? Of course it pushes off its own. So when we said that on Musaf there's no Ma'amad for Mincha, we meant there's no Ma'amad for Mincha in addition to the fact that there's no Ma'amad for Shacharit. So Halel is actually weaker than the pushing off power of Musaf, which pushes off the Musaf and as well the Mincha. Okay? So what did he thought in the beginning? Amaleh achi ka'amirach. This is what I meant to ask you when I asked you that question. Lo lidchi ela dide. What I didn't mean to say Halel pushes off its own, Musaf should also push off its own. Of course it pushes off its own. What I meant to ask you was exactly the opposite. If Halel pushes off its own, so Musaf should push off its own. In other words, only its own. I was asking really a backwards way of asking, why does the Musaf push off the Mincha? It shouldn't have the power to push off its own plus the next one in the same way that Halel doesn't push off Shacharit and Musaf. It's not buy one, get one, okay? If that's the case, it says the Gemara, Amalei, he explained to Rav Ashi, Ika Rav Yossi dekai kavatach. You know what? There is an opinion in the Mishnah that says exactly the same as you. Titanya, Rav Yossi, Omer kol yom shesh bo musaf, yesh bo ma'amad. Whenever, any day that there is musaf, yesh bo ma'amad, there is a ma'amad service. Now, which ma'amad are we talking about at this point? We're talking about the ma'amad of Mincha. So the opinion of Rav Yossi is synonymous with your sentiment that musaf should only really push off one, the same way Shacharit Halel only pushes off for Shacharit. So there is validity to what you're saying, but other opinions disagree with you. But at least Rav Yossi agrees with what you're saying, that there is another ma'amad on that day. Ma'amad demai, so which one did Rav Yossi mean that there is ma'amad still on that day? Ila ma'amad de Shacharit. If you say that he understood that the ma'amad on a day that has musaf is that the Shacharit ma'amad is there, right? That's the Hatana Kama Nami Hachikama. That can't be. Because in the beginning of the Mishnah, the first opinion said on a day that there's Musaf, there's no Shacharit.
What does
okay?
Tana mean?
Sorry?
What is Tana?
Tana means taught. Okay? Kama means first. Okay. The first teacher. So Tana Kama is if you have a Mishnah, the Mishnah says, you're not allowed to do this on Shabbat. Rabbi Yehuda says, you are allowed to do it on Shabbat. So who's the guy who said you're not allowed to do it? If it doesn't have a name, it's the Tana Kama. Just a general aside, generally a Tana Kama, unless we attribute it specifically to someone, Stam Mishnah, in a general case, Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. So a Mishnah that does not have an origin source, it's not quoted, it's not sourced. In general, the Mishnayot they followed Rabbi Meir. And the reason for that, the Shem HaGedolim writes, is because Rabbi Meir had a specific way of expressing his halachot, the way he taught, which was very understandable, was very clear, was concise. And therefore, when Rabbi Yehuda was deciding to codify the Mishnah, he chose Rabbi Meir to be the baseline case law, if you will, unless there was another opinion. Okay. Hatanakama nami hachikama. The Tanakama also said exactly this, right? So that can't be that the opinion that comes after, in other words, that it's Rav Yossi, also felt that the ma'amad that we're going to have is going to be the one that the Tanakama says. Ela ma'amad de musaf. Rabbi Yossi has to be referring to musaf, but that can't be dide nami lo dachi. It's a day that has musaf. How could you even entertain that on a day that there is musaf, the ma'amad that Rabbi Yossi said that there is was the ma'amad of the thing that should be pushing off? That can't be. Please mute. Okay. Ela de mincha. Must be that's referring to mincha. So Rabbi Yossi, when he said on a day that has Musaf, there is one ma'amad. He can't mean shacharit. Because if he means shacharit, that opinion is the Tanakama. If he's offering another opinion, has to disagree. So it must mean not Musaf, because Musaf is the pusher. It must mean the next one, which is the mincha. Okay? Ela the mincha. Korban. So korban etzim dachi, but the korban etzim pushes off the mincha. So it can't be mincha either. Ela lav the ne'ilah. What's Rabbi Yossi referring to? He's talking about ne'ilah. And the answer is that Rabbi Yossi held that a ne'ilah ma'amad appears on a day when we're bringing a musaf. So when he says ma'amad ika, that even on a day of musaf there is a ma'amad, he can't mean shacharit, he can't mean musaf, he can't mean mincha. So the only thing left means that Rabbi Yossi must hold that on a day of musaf we still bring the ma'amad of ne'ilah. Shma mina, we learn from here, dideh dachi, that something pushes off its own thing, de lav dideh lo dachi, but something which is not its own, i.e. it's not its own prayer, right? So lo dachi, you can't push off two prayers with one reason to knock something out. Shma mina, the Gemara says, indeed, good proof, beautiful. Hazaku baruch. Okay, let's move on. We asked the question in the Mishnah, with a very powerful question at the time. We asked that the Mishnah seems to say, and this is a very important thing, most people don't quite get this in the process of learning Gemara, is that as important as what the Mishnah says, or what the Gemara says, is what the Gemara or the Mishnah does not say. So as an example, we just proved halachot, we just proved ideas, not from what was said in the Mishnah, but rather what was not said. We proved the identity of those families in the Mishnah, because it did not say, and the family of King David brought twice, or and the family of Yoav and Tzuriah brought twice. So since it told me this guy's family brought twice, didn't tell me anyone else, from the silence of the Mishnah, we learn as if it said it straight out. It's not that family.
Deductive reasoning?
Sorry?
Deductive reasoning?
Well, more than deductive reasoning, absent deductive reasoning. So we're deducing from absence, as opposed to deducing from that which is there. If you told me that one family brought twice, it must mean that only all the other families did not bring twice. So you could not possibly translate two of those family names to be similar, to be the same one. Because if it was, it would have said that there were two families that brought twice. So we're deducing from the absence, as opposed to from the absence of a clause, as opposed to from the presence of one. Okay? Velitni, ask the Gemara, 1 second. You just told me in the Mishnah that we found a day that has no ma'amad service at all. And what's the reason why there's no ma'amad service? Because it has a bunch of things on the same day. It has Halel, which gets rid of Shacharit. It has Musaf, because it's Rosh Chodesh. And it has also Korban Etzim, so it gets rid of Mincha and Ne'ilah. So we have something to get rid of all the elements of the day. Sorry, it doesn't have Ne'ilah on that day. Let it also say Be'echad b'Nisan lo haya bo ma'amad. Also on the first day of Nisan, it's the same thing. In fact, someone we learned the Mishnah asked this, and I told them we're going to get to it in the Gemara. Why does the Mishnah say, here's a day that has no ma'amad service? Because there's a conflation of those three things. V'litni nami be'echad b'Nisan. Echad b'Nisan also has the same situation. Why? Sheyesh po halel, v'korban musaf, v'korban etzim. It has all three of the push-offs that Rosh Chodesh Tevet has. The Gemara says, no. Amarava, zot omeret, halela debiresh yarcha lav deoraita. What this tells you is that the halel of Rosh Chodesh does not come mid-deoraita. Amar Yochanan mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadak, Rabbi Yochanan, the student of Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadak, taught, there's 18 days on the year where a single person, reading by himself, even without a minyan, he finishes the Halel, recites the entire Halel. And these are them. Now, this is important to understand. When we say Gomrim Bo et Halel, so we, the Sfaradim, don't make a beracha only on a full Hallel. What's our beracha? Baruch Hashem. If you're Ashkenaz, Nathan, what's the beracha you guys say on Hallel? The Kroat Hallel. You say to read the Hallel. Why do you say to read the Hallel? Because Ashkenazim make a beracha, even when they're not fulfilling, even when they're not reading the entire Hallel, they still make a beracha. So they can't make the beracha l'gemoret Hallel, because they make that beracha even when they don't finish. Now, what's interesting is that even Ashkenazim, on the days that they do say the whole Hallel, they still don't change the beracha from the kro to ligmor. So there's one beracha for all instances, okay?
Why don't we say beracha when we're just reading, half of it?
It's not, that's for us, that's not enough to be able to make the beracha, okay?
It's a custom.
Sorry?
It's a custom.
Well, we'll see. That's exactly what the Gemara is talking about right now, okay? So the Gemara says in the name, Yochanan, the name of Shimon ben Yotzadok, that on 18 days in the year, a person finishes the Hallel. Eluhen, what are these days? Shimonat Yimei Achag, 8 days of Sukkot, 7 days of Sukkot, and 1 day of Shmini Atzeret. Shmonat Yimei Chanukah, 8 days of Chanukah. Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach, first day of Pesach. Yom Tov Rishon Shel Atzeret, on the first day of Shavuot. Only 1 day of Shavuot, because we're talking about before the Rabbanan Gezerah 2nd days. Ubagola esrim ve'echad yom. And in the diaspora, in Chutz La'aretz, we read on 21 days. Why? Tish'at yimei achad. Because in Chutz La'aretz, we have the extra day of Shmini Atzeret. And Shmonat yimei Chanukah. And on the 8 days of, the 8th day of Chanukah. Shnei yamim rishonim shel Pesach. And the first 2 days of Pesach. Ubet Yamim Tovim Shel Atzeret, and 2 days of Shavuot. I always love this. People say all the time, 2nd day Yom Tov, the rabbis made it up. I'm like, hello? Okay. Rosh Chodesh, but on the other hand, neither in Chutz La'aretz nor in Eretz Israel do we see Rosh Chodesh. That doesn't appear. Right? So that means that Rosh Chodesh is not on this list of Rabbi Shimon ben Yotzadok. So therefore, since it's not counted, therefore, it does not push off the ma'amad of shaharit, because it's not midoraita. Here's the problem. Let's go back 1 second. What did we just say, right, before we turn the page? Sorry?
We said it's suspended in Rosh Chodesh.
Zot omeret, halela diviresh yarcha, lav deoraita. It's not biblical. You know what else can't be biblical? Chanukah.
Right.
Happened after.
You know what else can't be biblical? 2nd day of Yom Tov.
Right.
So if you're trying...
Why can't the 2nd day of Yom Tov?
Because it's not midoraita.
Only 1 day there.
Right? So I think we already have the answer to this question. But I'm not sure if you guys will guess it. We already had the answer earlier in the last class. I don't know if you caught up. Did you catch up in the last class?
What's the answer?
Sorry?
What's the answer?
No, I want to know if you know the comparison, not the answer.
John is the comparison.
Okay? So earlier on, if you remember, we brought an asmachta. And on the fact that we had a pasuk in the Torah that we relied on, even though something was not mideoraita, according to anybody, turn back to 28a1.
Oh, here it is.
Top of the page, you see it? Halalu divrei Torah, vehalalu divrei sofrin. The biblical origin is also not from the Torah. It's not a deoraita chiyuv, but it originates. The proof for it, the idea that we're leaning on, is a pasuk in the Torah. Okay, so the illusion, the connection, was a biblical connection, and that was enough. So too over here, we do not mean that there's a biblical chiyuv mideoraita to say Hallel and Chanukah. Impossible. Chanukah only happened in the time of the Second Temple. Okay. On that, what we're answering on that is what we're saying is that the process by which we obligated the Jewish people to say Hallel, that is the precedent of the Deoraita. So the Hallel that was instituted on Chanukah comes in the same way that one would have instituted Hallel, which is when Am Yisrael as an entire nation is under duress to the point that they're going to be wiped out.
Then you say Hallel.
And then we say Hallel. Now there's other things as well. Because you noticed, what else do we have an example of that? And we don't say Hallel? Purim.
Oh, Purim. Why don't we say Hallel on Purim?
One of the answers to that is because it wasn't in the land of Israel. It didn't happen to us while we were in Eretz Israel. Okay? So there's many different elements to why we have this and when we have this, but it gives a very interesting concept as well, that if there was an example, if they had set up Yom HaAtzmaut, by the way, if Yom HaAtzmaut had been set up, if they came to the Bet Din, to the Sanhedrin, at the time in Israel, and they had asked the question, it was set up from its origin as a legal, as a governmental, as a national holiday. And then they tried to get everyone to take it on as a religious holiday. That was the reason why the religious groups pushed back, because it was never instituted in the first place as a religious holiday. So they were almost forcing this secular holiday to be celebrated as a religious one. I often wonder to myself what would have happened if before they decided that it was a national holiday, they would have come to them and asked them to institute Hallel. I think they would have instituted Hallel. I think that they would have. And not only that, what we're seeing over here is that if it would fit the parameters of the Hallel, like Chanukah, which is that Am Yisrael was under duress, if that's the case, and it was in the land of Eretz Israel, then there might have even been an argument to say that it's comparative to this Deoraita Chiyuv of Chanukah.
They were under duress as soon as they declared statehood.
Correct. Yes.
Not when they declared statehood.
No, not on that date. But that there was a war, at whatever point you wanted to pick that date, but that there should have been a day that when Am Yisrael was under risk of annihilation, right? Then there should have been Hallel, and the institution of that Hallel should have been like this, of a biblical origin, if you will, because the precedent is there. There's one other thing that's missing in the Hallel of Yom HaAtzmaut, as compared, even if it was done through the rabbis, and the Hallel of Chanukah. Can anyone figure it out? In the story of Chanukah,
there was several miracles by Hashem at Chanukah.
Also here.
What was the miracle?
What's the miracle? The War of Independence was an absolute open miracle, a million times over.
The state of Israel.
No, not the state of Israel.
What?
The Day of Independence is celebrated because of the war that they won to declare independence.
Okay.
There's one fundamental difference. That to declare Hallel, you have to have that all of Am Yisrael is under duress.
And there's too many people outside of
And
Israel.
there's a huge population, a huge part of Am Yisrael that lived everywhere else. Whereas in Chanukah, all the Jews lived there. If the Greeks had wiped them out, they'd wiped out everybody. Okay? So Purim carries the other. Purim carries the other necessity. All the people, but not in the land of Israel. Okay? Let's move on. Okay. We only have a couple minutes left. So therefore, that's the reason why on the Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, we did not count as a day of the Ma'amadot, because it's different to Tevet, where the Hallel that was said pushes off Shacharit, because it's Hallel of a biblical origin. Even though it's not biblical, but it follows the rules, Mideoraita, for setting Hallel for Am Yisrael. Rav Ikla de Bavel. Rav, one time, he traveled to Bavel. Chazinu de Kakaru Halela. He saw that they were reading Hallel Beresh Yacha on Rosh Chodesh. Savar la'afsukinu. He thought to stop them, because Hallel on Rosh Chodesh, he held, was not an obligation of this level, of this magnitude. Once he saw that it wasn't full Hallel, like on the days which were an absolute chiyuv, Shma Mina, he understood, Min Hagavotehem B'Yedehem, he understood this wasn't them making a mistake, but rather this was a valid minhag, passed down to them by their forefathers, and the reason why they were skipping was because it was to specifically show that this Hallel is not the same as the other Hallel, which is a full force Hallel. You got it? So therefore, he allowed them to continue on because he understood that it was a valid minhag.
When was he there? When did he travel there on Rosh Chodesh? Any Rosh Chodesh is not specific.
It doesn't say. A random Rosh Chodesh. But every Rosh Chodesh would be the same. The only reason why Rosh Chodesh Tevet is different is because it happens to fall out on Chanukah.
Right.
So the obligation of Halel on Rosh Chodesh Tevet is because it's 6 days into Chanukah. Okay?
Well, didn't that disprove that the Ashkenazim shouldn't say a whole Hallel on? They do. Or
No, they don't say a whole
They
Hallel.
just say
They say half a Halel, exactly like this, and they say the bracha of the Krot Halel.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Why do we say Hallel on all of Sukkot and Shmini Atzeret and only on the first day of Pesach?
Why do we say?
Why do we say Hallel all of Pesach? Like it says over here, you only say it on the first. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, why all
8
Sukkot
days
and
of
only on the first
Sukkot
Pesach?
and only on the first day of Pesach.
Nathan's raising his hand. Nathan knows the answer, but go ahead.
And I think you taught us it was that in Sukkot you have a different number of korbanot.
Excellent. Excellent. Every day of Sukkot is marked by a different number. We have the diminishing number of bulls, right? 70 korbanot are brought throughout the days of Sukkot, including Chol Moed. So each day is differentiated by a different set of korbanot, and therefore it creates, so to speak, a new relationship with the day, and therefore it has that element of Halel. But on Pesach, where the korbanot are the same the whole time, so we only do on the first day, and we would also do potentially on the last day, and on that we'll learn when we get to Pesachim how come it's the first day of Pesach and not the last day of Pesach.
Yeah, I know the reason.
There we go. What's the reason?
It's down below.
Oh, you got it already.
Because they killed him at the.
Because the Mitzrayim
and
died?
they wanna Celebrate that.
Exactly. Was that what you were going to answer?
On the same lines, that Hashem's creations were being killed, and that Hashem doesn't want us to sing.
Literally.
His creatures are being killed.
Ma'aseh yadai tovim bayam. My creations are drowning in the ocean. Va'at omer shira, and you're singing shira. Impossible. Okay. Let's the last line that we have to do together. Tana, we learned Yachid lo yatchil. An individual does not start to say Rosh Chodesh Halel on Rosh Chodesh. V'mitchil gomer. But once he started, then he has to continue. We'll pick up with this next week. But you see as well that there's there are different opinions as to whether or not a person says Rosh Chodesh says Halel on Rosh Chodesh at all. Rav was going to abolish it. He was going to tell them no. The next Gemara brings another opinion, another Tana that says really you shouldn't say it. Once you started already, okay, we'll let you finish. But his ideal is that you don't say it at all. Sephardim, this is our MO. Anytime Sephardim see a Safek Berachot, we always hold Safek Berachot Le'akel. If there's a doubt in Berachot, we always go light because we're scared of saying God's name in the Beracha for no reason. So therefore, Sephardim that are so makpid, according to the Shulchan Aruch, Safek Brachot Le'akel, we would never say a Beracha on something which has an element of doubt. Baruch Adonai Le'olam.